This is a question from Dr. Toten's class, and you began speaking about it a little bit before, but if you could just expand upon it for us on what do you view as the main obstacle for CRS or other like organizations in peace building efforts in Africa? So what are sort of the ones that really kind of are highlighted in your work, do you think?
I think that from my personal experience, the biggest obstacle is funding. When we started the first 2 years, the program caught on so well that, from all over the northern region, communities were asking us to come. But we just didn't have the resources, to be able to do that. So the biggest obstacle would be funding, and because very often a good part of the funding that is coming from the U.S. government for CRS does not go into peace building. It goes into food programs and other programs. So if there is a way we can lobby to get more of government funding passed through CRS for peace building, is going to help a lot. When I was working in the project, CRS funded the peace project mostly from the what they call the private funds that they receive. So I think that they are doing a great job, and the major obstacle is funding. Secondly, I think that's about the main thing. The second thing I would see is capacity building. That peace building is becoming a well developed and more complicated. For instance, somebody asked a question on trauma healing, so that we begin to move from the stage of creating the awareness of doing basic training to do intensifying. For instance, can we begin to look at centers where we have well-trained people who can do counseling? The whole idea would be very good that, while we start the centers, we can get people from here who are trained psychologists and psychiatrists to begin to work with some of the Africans. Students who are working in that field could go there and intern, and that will slowly build up the capacity. So I would say that funding is number one. Number two, the peace building that they have started is catching on greatly and needs to be diversified. So for instance, the issue of restorative justice, is there a way they can invest to develop it further and come up with a kind of model that can be implemented? CRS has this capacity that they work in different countries. So for instance, if they would develop a model for restorative justice, they could test it out in one country, and depending on the results they get, then they can replicate this. For instance, when we started, it was only our diocese that had a peace center. Everybody thought we were crazy. Today, in all the 5 dioceses, we have a satellite peace center with trainers and mediators. There's even in the national level a peace council. Of course, nobody will ever mention CRS or the church in this matter, but the head of the national council is the Cardinal of Ghana. So I think that apart from the funding, CRS has started a very important work, and I think that peace building should be core to all CRS programming. And if there is a way they can get government support, a support that comes also with a free hand to be able to respond to the needs as they arise, it will be very important. One of the obstacles I see where they do not have a free hand to operate on the ground, bureaucracy can set in and create problems. And I have worked with CRS where they've received funding from USAID, and they just didn't have the freedom to use these funds where it was actually needed. So I think that these are the 2 areas that I think that are obstacles and could be helpful if they are addressed.